Ambassador Michael Hawke stood at the edge of the UN's observation deck, staring out at the Earth below. The shimmering blue planet seemed peaceful from up here, a tiny oasis amidst a vast and indifferent cosmos. Yet there was nothing peaceful about what he had just endured. The Federation's leaders, a motley collection of alien species who'd long held Earth under a tight leash, had made it clear that humanity's place in the galaxy would remain one of servitude. The talks had been cordial, almost civil, but there had been no real negotiation. Instead, Earth was expected to simply accept the conditions laid out by the Paxari, the Exifos, and the other galactic powers, conditions that would strip humanity of its autonomy and turn Earth into a resource colony for the Federation. Hawke's thoughts were interrupted by the quiet approach of his assistant, Lucas O'Connell, a young, idealistic diplomat who had believed in the promises of peace from the very beginning. "Ambassador," Lucas said softly, his face drawn, "you handled that meeting well. But the others, the Council, they're not going to change their minds. Earth has no choice." Hawke didn't respond immediately. He turned to face the younger man, his gaze hard. "There's always a choice, Lucas. But some people just don't know it yet." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You know as well as I do that if we say no, the Federation will retaliate. Earth's military can't stand up to the Typhos Armada. We'll be crushed." Hawke nodded, but his mind was already far ahead, thinking of the millions of people on Earth who would never accept a future where they were pawns in a galactic game. The time for diplomacy was over. From his comm device, a new message blinked into view. The holographic image flickered to life. It was a broadcast from Sintar, the Paxari leader. The message was addressed directly to Earth. The arrogance in Sintar's voice was palpable. "You are welcome to join the Federation, on our terms," the alien leader sneered, "or you will remain forever insignificant." Hawke's fists clenched. In that moment, something inside him broke. There was no more diplomacy left. There was only one thing left for humanity to do. The next morning, the message was everywhere. Broadcasted on every screen, splashed across every news outlet, and shared in endless loops on social media. Sintar's sneering voice echoed through the airwaves, mocking humanity's claim to self-determination. "You still think you are equal?" The Paxari leader's image filled every screen, his long, alien face twisted in disdain. "Your race has no place in the grand design of the galaxy. You have been given every opportunity to join the Federation, and yet you continue to resist, like children, clinging to the illusion of freedom. You will never be more than tools to the greater purpose. You are nothing more than ants before a fire." The broadcast ended with a brutal display of Paxari military might. An endless array of starships, towering, incomprehensible ships that seemed to blot out the stars themselves. It was a deliberate show of force, a reminder of just how powerless Earth truly was. But for the people of Earth, it was a spark. In every corner of the globe, the response was immediate. Protests broke out in the streets of New York, Paris, Beijing, and Rio de Janeiro. People, once passive and resigned to their place in the galactic order, began to question everything they had been told. The airwaves were flooded with debates, talks of rebellion, calls for resistance. It was as though the very fabric of human unity had been ripped apart by Sintar's words. His arrogance had stirred something primal inside every human who heard it. Anger. In the shadows of these protests, there was one voice that rose above the rest. Eleanor Ellie Carter had been a military strategist with a reputation for thinking outside the box. Disillusioned with Earth's role as a subordinate in the Federation, she had spent years quietly developing contingency plans for a resistance movement, strategies that could give humanity a fighting chance if the Federation ever overplayed its hand. Now, Ellie knew the time had come. Her message was simple: fight back or die on your knees. And the world listened. The global resistance had been ignited, but it was still scattered, without direction. Yet, in every major city across the world, the unrest began to crystallize into something more, something dangerous. Ellie Carter and her small group of trusted operatives knew it would take more than rhetoric to awaken humanity's dormant strength. They needed action. New York City was the first to feel the resistance's fire. Under the cover of darkness, a group of insurgents, led by Captain Aaron "Red" Matthews, staged a daring attack on a Paxari diplomatic facility that housed crucial communication arrays and Federation surveillance equipment. The strike was fast and brutal. Hundreds of resistance fighters armed with stolen Federation tech infiltrated the compound. Their mission was simple: disrupt, sabotage, and capture anything that might give them an edge. Ellie watched the live feeds on her screen, her heart racing as the insurgents made their move. Matthews, the charismatic and battle-hardened war hero, led the charge, a man who had seen the Federation's cruelty firsthand during his time as an Earth liaison officer. His presence galvanized the fighters, a symbol that humanity still had men and women capable of leading in this fight. Within hours, the resistance had disabled the Paxari's communication infrastructure. The alien ambassadors and their staff were taken hostage, though no one was harmed. For now, it was a message. The Federation had expected obedience. Instead, they had found defiance. The victory sent shockwaves across the world. In cities like Paris, London, and Tokyo, the resistance followed suit, mounting coordinated attacks on Federation supply depots and communication hubs. While small in scale compared to the might of the Paxari or the Typhos, these initial victories were crucial. They proved to Earth that resistance was not only possible, it was already happening. But the Federation, with its immense power and intelligence networks, wasn't blind. They wasted no time in responding. Within hours of the New York assault, a Paxari warship appeared in Earth's orbit, ready to demonstrate the full extent of their wrath. It was the beginning of something much darker. Earth had made its first move, and now the Federation would retaliate. The Paxari's counterattack was swift and devastating. Moments after the New York operation, the skies above Earth darkened with the arrival of their warship, the Korathar, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything the humans had. A sleek, black leviathan, it cast a long shadow over the Earth as it hovered, seemingly suspended in midair, its weapon systems primed. The humans had no hope of standing against such power directly. They were a fledgling resistance, fragmented, fighting with scraps of alien technology and sheer desperation. Yet, Ellie Carter and Captain Matthews knew that if humanity was to survive, they needed something more than small-scale insurgencies. They needed leverage, and that leverage lay deep beneath the ocean. The artifact. Months earlier, while the Federation had turned Earth's oceans into a quiet graveyard for their failed experiments, Ellie had stumbled upon an ancient relic, a crystalline object, buried in the deep, its purpose unclear but its power unmistakable. After weeks of clandestine study with the brightest minds in human science, Ellie's team uncovered the truth. This object wasn't just an artifact. It was a weapon, capable of neutralizing the advanced technology of any species it touched. If activated, the pulse it emitted could cripple entire fleets of ships, rendering them useless in an instant. But using it was risky. The artifact's energy was unstable, its power incomprehensible. No one knew if it would even work, but in the face of extinction, it was humanity's last, best hope. Ellie's plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate a Federation command base to deploy the artifact. Matthews and his team would lead the charge, using guerrilla tactics to create enough chaos for Ellie to reach the Federation's central command in New York. If they succeeded, the Korathar and every other Federation ship orbiting Earth would be rendered useless. If they failed, humanity would be wiped out. The countdown had begun. The choice was clear: fight with everything they had, or disappear into the annals of history, remembered only as a brief, forgotten experiment. The night before the operation, Ellie Carter stood in the dimly lit underground command center beneath the ruined remains of New York's skyline. The walls hummed with the low thrum of generators, the only sound in an otherwise tense silence. Her team was ready, each member preparing for the most dangerous mission they had ever undertaken. They had all seen the brutality of the Federation firsthand. The ruined cities, the broken families, the countless lives lost in skirmishes. But none of that mattered now. Tomorrow, they would make their stand. Tomorrow, they would show the Federation that Earth would no longer bow. Ellie, Matthew's voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to find him standing by the door, his arms crossed, looking as calm as ever despite the storm brewing outside. He had always been the rock in the middle of chaos, but even he couldn't mask the weight of what they were about to do. "We're ready. We've got a route mapped through the tunnels. If everything goes according to plan, we can reach the command center without drawing too much fire." Ellie nodded, but her mind raced. What if it doesn't work? They had no idea if the artifact would even activate as they intended. The pulse was untested, and the slightest miscalculation could obliterate them all, not to mention cripple Earth's last hope. But there was no turning back. The Korthar warship still hovered above the planet, its shadow stretching over humanity's final breaths. If they didn't act now, humanity's struggle would be over before it even truly began. "Let's make history," Ellie said, her voice steely. Matthews offered her a tight smile, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma rifle. As the team suited up and prepared to move out, the full scale of what they were about to attempt hit Ellie like a wave. This wasn't just a mission to disable a warship. It was a gamble for the future of every living person on Earth. With the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, the operation began. It was time to take the fight to the heart of the Federation. The fate of humanity rested in their hands. The streets of New York had fallen silent, the usual hum of the city replaced by an eerie stillness as Ellie and her team moved through the shadowed alleyways. The Federation's presence was everywhere now, their soldiers patrolling in tight formation, their alien tech humming with lethal precision. But the resistance was prepared. Each member of Ellie's squad had been trained for this moment, each carrying specialized weapons and encrypted comm systems that were undetectable by Federation sensors. As they approached the fortified entrance to the Federation Command Center, Matthews gave a signal, and the team split into two groups. Ellie and a small strike force would infiltrate the building through the underground access tunnels, while Matthews led the diversion, drawing the enemy's attention with a series of explosive charges on the perimeter. The first explosion was deafening, a shockwave that rattled the windows of nearby skyscrapers. Ellie's heart pounded as the ground trembled beneath her boots. The Federation would now be fully alert. The clock was ticking. Ellie's team moved fast, navigating the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the city's surface. Every corner could hide a trap, every shadow could conceal a Federation patrol. But luck was on their side. So far, their plan was working. They reached the command center's lower levels in record time. A sleek, metallic door loomed ahead, protected by biometric security locks, the last obstacle between them and the core control room where the artifact would be deployed. Ellie's fingers moved swiftly over the keypad, hacking into the system. A tense moment passed as the door's locks clicked open. Inside, the humming of alien tech filled the air, the soft buzz of energy surging through the building's power conduits. But just as they stepped inside, the lights flashed red. A warning siren blared. The Federation had anticipated them. "Move!" Matthew's voice came over the comm, and Ellie knew they had no time left. The final fight had begun. Every second counted. She could already hear the heavy footsteps of Federation soldiers pounding down the hall toward them. It was now or never. Earth's fate was in their hands. The hallways of the Federation Command Center turned into a battlefield within moments. Ellie's team moved with ruthless precision, taking cover behind steel columns and control stations as Federation soldiers stormed toward them. The hum of alien weaponry filled the air, followed by the sharp crackle of plasma fire. The resistance fighters, outgunned but not outmatched, fired back with everything they had. Every shot a defiant stand against the tyranny that had held Earth in its grasp for far too long. Ellie ducked behind a reinforced wall as the blast from a Paxari plasma rifle scorched the floor inches from her feet. She motioned to her team to flank the advancing soldiers, and together they pushed forward, clearing the hallway room by room. The tension was suffocating, the constant threat of annihilation, just a heartbeat away. But their resolve was ironclad. For too long, humanity had been nothing but pawns in the Federation's game. Now, they were the players. Matthew's voice crackled over the comm, low and urgent. "Ellie, we got reinforcements inbound. You need to move now." Ellie gritted her teeth. They were close. Just a few more corridors to the core control room, where the artifact would be deployed. But the Federation wasn't going to make it easy. More soldiers poured into the corridor, cutting off their escape route. The team fought fiercely, but Ellie could already hear the heavy boots of reinforcements echoing through the walls. "Hold them off," Ellie shouted, her eyes scanning the dimly lit room for an exit. But the resistance had run out of time. The hallway was rapidly filling with Federation soldiers. Every second that passed pushed them closer to a full-scale firefight they couldn't afford. Then, just as hope seemed to fade, Matthew's voice rang out once more. "Ellie, get to the core. We'll cover you." With a grim nod, Ellie sprinted down the final stretch of the hallway, her heart racing. She reached the door to the core control room, slamming her palm onto the biometric reader. The door hissed open. Inside, the artifact lay waiting, their only hope. She activated the device, praying to whatever gods watched over humanity. The countdown began. The artifact hummed to life in the center of the control room, its crystalline form glowing with a pulsating light. Ellie stood frozen for a moment, her heart thundering in her chest, her eyes locked on the strange energy field that now swirled around the object. The countdown on the display screen flashed in bright red numbers: 60, 59, 58. Each passing second felt like an eternity. If it worked, the Federation's fleets would be crippled. Their most advanced ships, their vast array of technology, all rendered useless. But there was no going back now. Ellie had no idea what kind of destruction the pulse might cause, but it was humanity's last chance. Behind her, the sound of approaching Federation reinforcements echoed through the hallway. The door to the control room was locked, but it wouldn't hold for long. Ellie's team had done their best to slow the enemy's advance, but time was rapidly running out. 47, 46. With a deep breath, Ellie turned to the small screen next to the artifact. A confirmation signal blinked. She pressed the button. The crystal pulsed once, twice, then released a wave of energy that rippled through the room. Outside, in the skies above Earth, the Korathar and every other Federation ship within range were hit by a massive surge of electromagnetic energy. The alien warships, once so imposing, now floated aimlessly, their engines sputtering and failing. Communications went silent. Weapons systems powered down. The Federation fleet, once poised to crush humanity, had been neutralized in a single, overwhelming pulse. Ellie staggered back, disoriented by the sheer force of the pulse. The ground beneath her feet trembled. The doors to the control room blasted open, and Federation soldiers flooded in, but they were too late. The war was over. Humanity had won. As the Federation forces withdrew, humiliated and broken, Earth's people flooded the streets in celebration. The first flicker of hope in decades sparked a fire that spread across every nation. Ellie, battered and exhausted, looked out over the chaos of New York, where the banners of resistance now waved proudly in the wind. It wasn't just the end of the war. It was the beginning of humanity's true place in the galaxy. Earth had snapped, and the universe would never forget.